Hello and welcome back to the MHR podcast. I'm Alice.
And I'm Andy.
So Andy, I thought today we would talk about stress in the workplace.
Stress in the workplace.
Indeed.
Are you okay? Are you stressed?
Right now.
Are you stressed now?
Right.
This instant? Are you stressed? You don't have to be stressed, but are you? You can tell me right away, if you could. Is it stressful doing this? Are you stressed right now? Is this a stressful podcast? If you're stressed, please communicate it.
Always
and we will
communicate.
talk about how we can make this podcast less stressful for you. But if it is stressful, I would like to know.
Well,
now, if you could, if that's okay. Not a problem?
Jamie always says that I can't get a word in.
Yeah, okay. Well, if that's stressful for you, let's talk about it.
Let's talk. Okay, shall I try?
Yep. No, it's fine.
Oh,
If you don't
yeah,
have any
there we
ideas,
go.
that's okay, we'll leave it. So you'd like to talk about stress?
So, yes, talk about stress. So, realistically, let's be honest, everyone's felt stress in their life in some way or another, but stress in the workplace is probably not the best thing. For some people, it probably maybe motivates them. Some people work well under pressure.
Yeah.
But when we talk about stress, it's normally in a negative connotation, isn't it?
I suppose, to me, there's a difference between pressure and stress. Pressure is something that can maybe help motivate you, or it makes you drive to do something. It might not be a good thing also, but it could be like a bit of good productive pressure to put, but stress to me is a very much a negative thing. It's your body reacting to a situation. It's your body or your mind telling you that it's not handling something in a healthy way.
Yeah, and I think it reflects, I think they say that it reflects physically and mentally when you're stressed.
Yeah.
So you might not feel like you're stressed, but actually subconsciously you are stressing about something. So I found here an article that says that 98% of respondents to a survey in 2023 said that they've been stressed by at least one thing at work.
Yeah.
98%.
I think that's very uncommon, right? It doesn't surprise me that's incredibly high. Like work isn't supposed to be easy either, is it, right? We don't come to just have an easy time. Work is full of challenges, and a lot of people's jobs are about solving challenges, which can be stressful. And I think, in a way, we probably shouldn't be afraid of stressful situations, but we should feel confident in knowing how we deal with them, so it becomes sustainable and we don't burn out.
Yeah. Would you say you're quite good at dealing with stress?
Yes and no. I think, like, the older I get, the more I learn to deal with where I think maybe my limits are or how I deal with stressful situations.
Speak with great wisdom there.
Yeah, maybe. But also, I think sometimes with the person dealing with stress themselves are the last person to recognise it. And sometimes it does take, very stress-aware colleagues to highlight that they feel like someone's under pressure and how can they help, or help people talk about it. I think sometimes talking about stress is a bigger challenge than dealing with it, and that is the first step to dealing with it. Right.
Would you say that you're more open to talking about stress now maybe than you were 5-10 years ago?
100% I am now. I think it helps working with maybe younger people who are more open to having conversations about stress on their mental health and their well-being.
Right. Yeah.
I think that was something that was done a lot less 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
And also, I think the older you get, the more you become aware of your, like you say, your limits and what is stress and how you feel about things.
Yeah.
And the tactics that you employ to deal with stressful situations. I think you get better prepared at knowing what your limits are. You've been pushed further in the past, so you go, you know what, next time I'm going to learn how to deal with it this way.
Yeah.
So I do deal with it better now. I don't think life is more or less stressful. I think I'm more aware of how to deal with those things.
Yeah, and like you say, you mentioned those limits and you probably recognise where your priorities are. So maybe what you used to stress about or what you might find stressful, you think it's not top of my priority. So it's not worth the effort to be stressed about that. That can wait almost.
And actually, sometimes I think I found that the new things are stressful, right? Because they're unknown.
Yes.
So I think when you're more junior in your career, or you're growing in a role and you're facing new challenges, that can be more stressful because, and it's like we talked about last week with Disrupt HR, like there's a lots of conversation about imposter syndrome. People feel stressed when they feel like they're out their depth, or they don't feel supported, or they don't feel like they're good enough to be doing the situation they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the more you mature into a role at work, or the more you develop confidence about who you are and what you offer to the business, the less you feel stressed and maybe judged as well.
Yeah, so I think that's where kind of we're leaning towards is what is it that's kind of causing those stress in the workplace? Now, it will differ between people, but in this article that I've read, the top reason that top cause of stress is actually cost of living crisis, which we've brought up many a times. But also they speak about here about the exhaustion, workplace burnout, and then also workloads and to-do lists.
We've talked about all of this year, haven't we? Already quite a lot. There's like financial well-being being the biggest factor to satisfaction at work and a contributor towards stress.
Yeah, completely. So I guess this podcast is almost a bit of a reflection on, well, we all know these things are going on. It's not unknown, and it will carry on going throughout the year. But actually, for HR and the teams, what can they be doing? For the workplace to help reduce or help employees manage stress in the workplace, because you can't eliminate it.
No, you're right. It exists life is conflict and life is lots of toing and froing, and that's not easy. It's not always supposed to just be smooth sailing. Challenge is positive, but it's how you deal with it to avoid negative stress, right?
Exactly.
Okay, what tips have you got?
And well, you lead on to the very first one, which is having the right tools in place.
Okay.
So if you know that you're going to be stressed about something or something is stressful, you tend to then want to take action, don't you? You might write a to-do list. I'm a bit of a to-do list writer. Top tip, always cross off the first item. Even if you've done it, write it down.
Oh, do you?
Tick off the first
one.
one.
Write a to-do list. Done. Done it. I'm achieving today.
It works. Yeah. It works. But what this kind of leans towards is for stress in the workplace. If you have something like the correct HR software, it should be there to almost educate employees about what resources there are out there for support, so they don't feel like they're on their own and they don't have to manage maybe that workload on their own. But also, we spoke about earlier about talking about it. A lot more people are more open to communicate when they're struggling. So having a software like we have People First, where you can create community groups, so you could have support groups, or you could be sharing even just a post about maybe what you've done kind of as a team. It can help encourage more people to start communicating, and then it builds this nice community where people feel supported. So
I think that's really a good point. I think communication is key. Like, I always feel more stressed at work if I feel like I'm the only one who knows about the problem, and then I'm worried about how to deal with it or who to talk to. But actually, as soon as you talk to someone else, you share the problem, and as a team you can work on it, it becomes off your shoulders, and I think that can alleviate a lot of stress.
Definitely. And things as well like check-ins. When you have those regular meetings with your manager, feel free to share that you might feel stressed at work. It's not a bad thing to be talking about if you're stressed. I think it shows you care. Yeah. Isn't it? So the second one we have here is encouraging a healthy work-life balance. So with that, it's the idea that HR should be there really to encourage employees to be disconnecting and recharging. Yeah. Do you feel like you've recharged this bank holiday weekend?
Yeah, I do, but I think a bank holiday weekend's a really good chance for that, isn't it? We feel like we've had 100%. A bit of extra time. A work-life balance is essential, isn't it? It is essential. I sleep under this desk in a sleeping bag, and we record these every day, right, for 12 hours.
Oh, there's no stopping it.
You feed me biscuits, and then I slowly shut up.
Always bourbons and custard creams.
So, I don't know what that is, but no, it is incredibly important. I think people need to feel like it goes back to the retention issue, doesn't it? And it goes back to the whole satisfaction in the workplaces. People need to feel like the deal that they've signed up for is working for them. Yeah. And part of that is having a life around work, no matter how passionate you are about it. Yeah. I know we get up excited to do the podcast every day when we do it.
Oh, ready to go.
We don't want a life outside that, right?
Exactly. So need some time apart.
Yeah.
Just some time.
We're not Bert and Ernie. Like, work-life balance is important, so I get that.
Completely. But also as well, there needs to be someone setting the boundaries, and ultimately it will be the HR team representing the business, and they need to be communicating those boundaries as well, that you are allowed to have a work-life balance. Like I say, you've signed a contract, you know your hours, and some people are passionate about their work and they have more to show, and that's absolutely okay, but just make sure that mentally and physically you're not burning out, because then that's when it starts to come back, doesn't it? So that leads on to the next one, which is actually promoting physical well-being. So we spoke about burnout just then, but this is more about kind of reducing the stigma. It's more about kind of reducing that stigma that it's not just burnout mentally, but actually physically as well. It can impact you. So things like exercising, we know scientifically it releases endorphins and improves overall mood. Do you do anything outside activities?
I feel like the fact they had to ask that question gives you most of the answers that you think you already have. I get it though. I'm not as active as I'd like to be. I'll be honest with you.
I think you were quite active.
I used to be,
yeah.
And then I'm not. But I do. It is one of my kind of goals for this year is to be a lot more active. Like I've got friends who go to the gym every morning religiously for an hour, and I'm like, that's very impressive. It's too far for me, but I think I can absolutely see the benefit of like a good workout. Getting your body pumped refreshes the mind and makes you feel clearer, and it motivates you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It makes you feel like you've achieved something, you've woken your body up, and then actually the day at work you're going on to is a lot clearer. You're not groggily waking up into your work day. You've hit it with some energy.
Definitely.
So, positive energy creates positive energy, right?
I think so. I don't know if it still happens, but I'm sure in Japan, in the corporate world, they make everyone stand up at a certain time of day, and they have a workout sequence.
Okay.
And I think it lasts for like 3 to 5 minutes, but it's just enough where it's meant to get you set for the day. It's meant to be a positive kind of activity to do together.
Maybe
so
it's recognising the science,
on.
right? That actually, if you work in an office and you're sat in a chair, you do that all day. That's really bad for you.
Yes,
so
it is.
A lot of people have watches, don't they, that will buzz them.
Oh no, do you have? Oh no, you've got traditional as well.
This is a very cheap watch, which doesn't even have a light.
Well, the audience didn't know that.
Yeah,
you could have had a Rolex gleaming, but
yeah, sorry. To be fair, I don't know. But some people have them, don't they? Like smart apps, whether it's on the phone or on a watch, that just goes, "Hey, remember, it's time to move now. This is really good for your body and your mind if you get up and be active."
Yeah, and I think even just make sure that you go for a walk, just stand up.
Yeah.
Really simple, but like I say, it can help you reduce stress, because I think it makes your mind just switch off for that split second, step away, reevaluate where you are, and then you can go back into it. So it helps clear your mind.
We're quite lucky where we are because we're right by a beautiful park, right? So actually, like I go for every lunch, I go for a walk, and that really helps my stress levels. It doesn't matter what's gone on in the morning. This is an hour out now that I'm going to have a break or refresh my mind, unless of course it's raining or I just stand in a puddle or I get chased by a swan, which is quite stressful. But otherwise, it's very pleasant.
Lovely, especially the weather lately as well.
Yeah, exactly. No, the weather's nice now, so I think being outside and being active is a really good stress burner.
Yeah, and it takes your eyes away from the screen. I honestly think my eyes have got worse since working full time.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to end up with glasses soon.
You have to highlight that to your occupational workplace professional.
I know. I think we get free eye tests here.
Okay.
There you go. If you're working on laptops, keep an eye on your eyes.
Keep an eye on. If you can't see your own eyes, there's a problem there, isn't there?
Yeah,
so
go get them checked. Keep healthy. So moving on to the fourth. So they recommend for HR that they prioritise mental health and accommodate neurodivergent employees.
Okay.
So what they say here is encouraging open dialogue helps reduce the stigma, and it will allow HR to provide the necessary accommodation and support for those that might need it. So a good example they've given here is you could offer flexible working hours. We know that's mentioned quite a lot to help reduce. But you can also more tangible things like quiet spaces, looking at the layout of your office, making sure that there's quieter corners, because again, people work in different ways, don't they?
It's really important, I think, that we make sure that we understand there's a lot of different needs or wants or expectations from how people want to work and approach work and contributors towards stress. So it's not one rule for everyone, right? Yeah,
definitely. I think as well, like when I get stressed, I like space. I like to have a big piece of paper, write everything. And when I say big piece of paper, we're talking A3.
Yeah, okay.
Big marker. Everything goes on a kind of what do you call it, like a word cloud.
Yeah. Nice.
And I just need to figure it out on my own.
That's nice. That's a good way of processing stuff, though. It's like a to-do list, but it's quite visual, right?
Yes, I'm definitely a visual one. But again, it goes to show that if your workplace provides or HR provides those areas, you're more likely to be able to deal with the stress.
You're facilitating productivity as well, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%, definitely. So the fifth one, it's a bit of an interesting one, but I think it's a really good topic when we speak about stress economically, is obviously I've lost the word now. It's the cost of living crisis. And this is about assisting with financial literacy.
Right.
So we know that financial literacy in the UK is not the greatest globally, but we are trying to get better at it. So for HR, this is something like you could be providing resources, workshops, or even access to financial advisors. So we've actually partnered with a company called Waystream,
Yep.
and they offer a financial wellbeing app. So alongside features such as looking at real-time pay, they do have access to financial advisors and also kind of knowledge as well, like little hubs of knowledge. So if you didn't know that you were eligible to apply for a certain grant and things like that, I think it can really help open up ways of kind of educating yourself in finance, but also I think accessing means that could support you outside the workplace as well.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting one. I went along to their office, gosh, it was a few weeks ago now, learned a bit more about the app, and I thought it did 3 things. It does 15 different things, so
Wow.
and developing as we speak.
Nice.
So, like I say, I think financial stress is a very current topic, wouldn't you say?
I think so, and I think with everyone maybe being less literate on this, you don't know what you don't know, and if you are stressed financially, actually you won't know the solution because it's not something you're educated in. So making sure you've got a route to educate your employees or raise awareness of solutions they may not be aware of is really important.
Yeah, definitely. And we know as well, I think we spoke in a previous podcast, that financial stress it carries through into your workplace, into your job, and then obviously then it's kind of a tumbling effect. So, like I say, educating yourself and knowing more solutions is going to help you. So the next one, we spoke about this very broadly, but it's true, and it's basically about establishing clear communication channels. Mm-hmm. So what do you think that means, Andy, for like HR teams, HR software?
So there's loads. We talk about this a lot, don't we? Really, because a lot of what we do is looking at how work can be more social, how it can be more connected, how you can build communities, so you can share information. You don't silo yourself as well as your own personal data. It's all about making sure there's transparency across the organisation. So for me, it's about making sure that HR processes or teams or however it's structured in an organisation are making it very clear that there are clear routes to communicate with your employees or your reportees or the people you report to, and actually what's expected of the business in terms of the regularity of that, and then providing the functionality that isn't limited by a physical space. So
That's
actually,
good, yeah.
Okay, yes, we know you should be talking to your manager once a month formally. Okay, great. But, okay, I'm on the road and they're in the office. What do we do? Okay, well, why don't we facilitate a digital space in which you can hold those conversations, which can prompt to hold those conversations. So it takes one less piece of work out your week diary. So this is automated for you and it's supporting you rather than being an extra task.
Yeah, 100%. And like you say, kind of summing all that up is it hopefully helps reduce the uncertainty and the anxiety about having to communicate.
Yeah.
So like you say, having a software that prompts or knowing that there's a regular point of contact with your manager where you can discuss and communicate about how you're feeling at work, it's more likely to create kind of harmony, isn't it, between everyone?
There's a joint expectation of how you communicate, which is great, and also it can help remove that anxiety of actually reaching out. Sometimes you may feel anxious about talking to your manager about something, actually, and because you don't want to pester them or you feel like you're going to look stupid. Actually, if you're already creating those channels and they're automated for you, you can utilise them rather than feeling like you're being a problem.
Definitely, definitely. So hopefully, if you are communicating more and your HR has kind of created these spaces that work well for every type of employee, you are ultimately fostering a positive workplace culture. So having a positive workplace culture, you would hope, would eventually not eliminate stress, but at least alleviate it.
Yeah. I think it's healthier to acknowledge that stress exists, he said, stressfully trying to say his words, than pretending it doesn't or saying we can get rid of it. We can't get rid of stress.
No.
What we can do is take responsibility for how we deal with stress and support people through it, because we can't predict what's going to happen, but we can take ownership of how we deal with it together and set expectations on that.
Yeah, definitely. And for the HR teams as well, it's they are, I think, the body of of a business where they can create resources and they can create guidance about the support that's offered from the business. And like you say, kind of communicating the key thing that you can't eliminate stress. You are going to feel it, but it's how we're dealing with it. It's where we're finding solutions and support. But having a positive workplace culture, we obviously could probably think straight away, oh, it's how I feel about my team, it's how I feel about my job. But actually, it's kind of, if you look at as well HR software, how can that be? So what software are you investing in? How can that be helping to foster that positive workplace culture?
Yeah.
So things like recognitions,
Yeah.
instantly having praise or recognising birthdays, for example, or achievements, it immediately creates a positive feeling about the place, the business. And that's something that you want to contribute to as well, isn't it? The appreciation of others in the workplace. And hopefully that comes back around where then you feel closer, you feel like you're part of, I was going to say a group of people, but you feel part of a community.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately going to hopefully, when you do feel stressed, or maybe even it reduces the chance of you being stressed because you feel like there's not just support in your immediate team, but actually across everywhere. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I think it's a nice point to end on because it wraps up nicely what we've kind of talked about and what we've talked about before in terms of all of the things that we need to do to make work better for people in the world of work is to alleviate the jobs that are burdening us so we can focus on what's important. Stress is a burden. And things that we do, say like people first or any of the stuff that we talk to a lot of people in regards to HR or payroll or anything, is all about relieving that burden and empowering teams to facilitate change that's positive.
Yeah.
So I think it's a nice point to end on because you're right, stress is real. We can't make it go away, but we can deal with it better. And if we do that, we make a better environment and a culture around how we talk about our mental health.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really timely discussion. Because next week is Mental Health Awareness Week. Yeah. And I know we'll be back next week to talk about what we've learned during that week. But I bet stress is a huge factor and part of that conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And there'll be a main topic, I think, about talking about it. So we've talked about stress in the workplace, and we'll have a bit of more of a reflective one, I think, next week about Mental Health Awareness Week, and maybe things we've learnt during that week. So hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you'd like to tune in next week to hear Andy and I discuss a little bit more around Mental Health Awareness Week and the things that have gone on, we'll catch you next week. But for now, thank you very much.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.